Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. In today's update, scientists at the CDC are investigating after more than a dozen COVID vaccine recipients developed myocarditis, an inflammation of the heart. So far, about 1 out of every 5 million people getting the vaccine have reported heart inflammation. That's in line with what scientists expect to see among unvaccinated people, and the condition usually went away on its own. Meanwhile, new COVID cases are down to the lowest level since last June. And last night, 15,000 fans gathered at Madison Square Garden for the Knicks' first playoff game against the Atlanta Hawks, making it the biggest indoor gathering in New York State since the start of the pandemic. And the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas seems to be holding strong. The Biden administration is sending U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to that region to meet with Israeli and Palestinian leaders, as well as other key partners. Blinken tells ABC News the ceasefire is critical as attention now turns to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. At least 250 people were killed over 11 days of fighting, most of them Palestinians. Now Israeli tanks are pulling back from the Gaza border, and Hamas militants have walked openly in the streets of Gaza for the first time since the fighting started. Meanwhile, President Biden is condemning attacks against Jewish communities in the wake of the conflict. Biden tweeted, "The recent attacks on the Jewish community are despicable and they must stop. I condemn this hateful behavior at home and abroad. It's up to all of us to give hate no safe harbor." And demonstrators rallied across the country this weekend to honor the life of George Floyd ahead of tomorrow's one-year anniversary of his murder by a Minneapolis police officer. Members of the Floyd family led marches through Houston, Brooklyn, and Minneapolis yesterday, and more events are expected tomorrow. ABC's Alex Perche is live from George Floyd Square this morning. And Alex, what are things like there right now?
Hey, Diane, good morning to you. So we got out here probably about an hour ago, and I can tell you that just to orient you, we're at the corner of this church parking lot, which behind me is at Cup Foods. The gas station is right to my right here. When we pulled up, there was a makeshift church ceremony. Things were pretty peaceful. It was very chill. But very quickly, you're reminded that this is an autonomous zone, and everything from traffic enforcement to even road repairs are being handled by the community here. There's a gentleman who's actually been going around patching potholes in the street, which is something that was not happening this time last year. So it's definitely a different tone from when we were here this time last year. But overall, this morning and leading into tomorrow, it's been pretty quiet.
And Alex, I know you were also there covering the Derek Chauvin trial. What's the area been like since the trial ended and Chauvin was convicted?
Well, look, so obviously whenever that verdict was read out, there was a sense of achievement, a sense of I don't want to say relief, but some sort of accomplishment for all the rallies and all the things that the folks here have been protesting and advocating for. But I will say that there is still very much a focus from the community here on some federal sense of national police reform, and that obviously is something that hasn't happened yet. And so I think while there is a calm demeanor here, certainly some of the other activities that we've seen over the weekend, both here and elsewhere in the country, and then certainly some of the things that we'll see on later today and then also into tomorrow, we'll be pushing again for that national legislation.
And Alex, tomorrow marks that 1 year since George Floyd's death, but we already saw events there over the weekend. So what's planned for today?
Well, so Diane, this is day 2 of 3 of programming. We know that there are a couple of panels that are scheduled for later today. The mother of Eric Garner, Gwen Carr, also Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon Martin's mother, and the parents of Dante Wright will be participating with those as well. And then later this evening, there is a rally and a march press conference scheduled in St. Paul with the girlfriend of George Floyd.
And Alex, President Biden is also set to host some members of Floyd's family at the White House tomorrow. His goal was to have a police reform bill passed by tomorrow as well. What's the status on that bill?
Well, so Diane, that was obviously President Biden's goal, but Democratic lawmakers have already signaled that they don't think they're going to meet this deadline of having legislation on his desk by tomorrow. I can tell you that Congresswoman Karen Bass is optimistic, but she has said that a bipartisan bill will be available soon, but it's not going to be tomorrow. Now, we know that House Dems passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act in March. It, among other things, ends no-knock warrants, bans chokeholds, creates a national registry for police misconduct, and also looks to end qualified immunity. But that last point is something that a lot of Republicans have taken issue with. Now, they proposed a bill of their own, but Democrats have said that doesn't go far enough. But I think when we look at the overall impact of these protests surrounding George Floyd, Breonna Taylor last year, here's a marker. At the federal, so things are being worked out at the federal level, but if you look at the overall impact, data from the National Conference of State Legislatures shows at least 82 bills that have been enacted across 22 states that deal with police reforms and also transparency. So that is definitely something to be looked at in the totality of these marches and rallies over the last year.
All right, Alex Prochet live from George Floyd Square. Alex, thank you. And in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, Prince Harry, a longtime champion of mental health care, is giving the world a look at how he cares for his own mental health. Harry allowed cameras into his therapy session where he uses EMDR, a technique to help trauma. He said it's a form of therapy he's always wanted to try. And after starting it, he says it's made him feel calmer and stronger. Here's Maggie Rulli.
This morning, Prince Harry, as we've never seen him before, inviting the world into his private therapy session.
For me, it's all about prevention.
The Prince sharing this intimate moment on a new mental health documentary series with Oprah on Apple TV.
London is a trigger, unfortunately, because of what happened to my mum and because of what I experienced and what I saw.
He says after years of therapy, he's now discovered eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, better known as EMDR therapy.
Just notice what comes up.
He shows people what a session looks like.
Was there a particular trip, or does it happen every time? Is it always the same?
Happens every time. Everything feels tense. It's being the hunted and being helpless.
We see Harry crossing his arms and tapping on each shoulder, something called bilateral stimulation.
And with EMDR, we go back, we look at the past, we look at how your past may be affecting what's happening to you currently.
EMDR practitioner Wendy Bird recommends EMDR therapy, one of various techniques to treat trauma for many of her patients.
It's changing the way that the experience is stored. And when the brain changes the way it's stored, then again, you feel differently about it. And that tapping is part of the process to allow the brain to start doing that.
Bird credits Prince Harry for being open about his mental health struggles.
It's really brave to go in front of the world and talk about painful things and show that emotion. We need more people who can do that.
And this treatment has been around since the 80s, but doctors say right now it's becoming more and more popular. And thanks to someone like Harry being so open about the process, they're hoping more people can find help. Our thanks to Maggie Rulli for that report. And no Grammys? No problem. The Weeknd led the pack at last night's Billboard Music Awards after being snubbed at the Grammys earlier this year. We've got all the highlights, including some surprise family appearances after the break. Welcome back to ABC News Live Update. The Weeknd dominated last night's Billboard Music Awards, taking home 10 trophies, including Top Artist. Meanwhile, Pink and her daughter Willow also wowed the audience, performing together high above the stage. ABC's TJ Holmes has all the highlights of music's big night.
A night of electric performances. This year's Billboard Music Awards delivered throwback hits and surprise guests.
I do not take this for granted.
And The Weeknd cleaned up.
The Weeknd!
The Weeknd! The Weeknd!
The Blinding Lights singer took home 10 trophies total, including Top Artist, after being snubbed at the Grammys earlier this year, and he chose to boycott that show. Last night's event proved to be a family affair, with Pink performing in her signature acrobatic style, but this time joined by her 9-year-old daughter, Willow. The duo dazzled. The pop star was crowned with the night's Icon Award with a touching introduction from her friend and old crush, Bon Jovi. And then there was Drake accepting the Artist of the Decade Award alongside his 3-year-old son, Adonis.
To my beautiful family, and hey, wait. And to you, I want to dedicate this award to you.
And Alicia Keys.
Does a real man knows a real woman when he sees her? And a real woman knows a real man ain't afraid to please her.
Introduced by famous fan, former First Lady Michelle Obama, in celebration of the 20th anniversary of the singer's classic freshman album, Songs in A Minor.
I remember what it felt like to hear the song Fallen for the first time. It was edgy and soulful, graceful yet raw.
Keys switched between 4 pianos to perform a medley of songs from the album. So, Diane, a lot of people still scratching their head about how in the world the Weeknd couldn't get a single Grammy nomination, but cleans house at the Billboard Awards. So just a little reminder here that the Grammys, they're determined differently. They have committees and voting members, about 12,000 voting members that determine who gets those nominations and those wins. The Billboard Awards, however, are determined by your album sales, your digital sales, your airplay. So it's a different measure altogether, but still scratching your heads, Diane.
All right. Well, the Weeknd did well. ABC's TJ Holmes, thank you. And the COVID-19 pandemic dramatically changed how we spend our free time. But as things start to reopen, how will the pandemic affect how we entertain ourselves in the future? ABC News Live Prime anchor Lindsay Davis has more.
It's been said that sunshine is the best medicine, and this spring it certainly seems there's a greater appreciation for the age-old remedy as people yearn to flock outdoors after hibernating for much of the past year. And as we hunkered down at home, many of us started entertaining ourselves differently. Our houses have become hubs for feature-length movie releases, virtual concerts and dance parties, four-course fancy dining, even catching a Broadway show from the comfort of our couch. The time we all spent streaming content rose 44% between December 2019 and December 2020. While we stayed at home, major sports leagues, the MLB, NBA, NFL, and NHL, all took a collective $14.1 billion hit from the pandemic, according to Forbes. But now, as COVID cases fall and more Americans get vaccinated, an easing of restrictions is drawing crowds back to the stadiums and arenas nationwide. New York is showing signs of life after a devastating 2020 when the state's arts, entertainment, and recreation sectors lost nearly 53,000 jobs, a 66% decline. But now the real Broadway is roaring back, announcing that it's reopening this September. And concerts are making a comeback, too, after a year of canceled live events cost the industry $30 billion. Singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett just playing to a sold-out crowd on the opening night of his 2021 tour, while Bruno Mars and Travis Scott also have sold-out shows coming up this summer and fall. So, are all of our favorite haunts and activities forever changed? And if so, what does this new future have in store for us? We sought the experts to get us hip to the game of the future of entertainment. Pleased to have Darren Rovell joining us today, guru when it comes to all things sports and entertainment. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Lindsay.
Are you privy to any kind of technologies on the horizon that would make real experiences more immersive?
I think the key is now going the other way, bringing fans closer to the action. Making sure that while you're there at an event, that it is so much better than HDTV or 4K, because otherwise I think people are comfortable with how they've been. For example, the Las Vegas Raiders are basically going to have a nightclub, in the first few levels of the stands. Why? Because they have to bring up the stakes.
You have 3 children. I have a young son. In the future, what's entertainment going to look like for our children?
Well, I think they've gotten probably a little bit more used to the iPads and the technology. Are the kids going to be less on their iPads? Is there going to be less distance? Is there going to be, as far as electronics, maybe fewer electronics? I actually think that's possible. Everyone goes the other way, Lindsay, and you know what? Now we're going totally the other way. I don't know what is going to happen, but I do think it's possible that it reverts back to before and maybe goes beyond that.
What are you thinking as far as is on the horizon with regard to sports and entertainment?
I think there's a pent-up, obviously people have been in their homes. People have all of a sudden taken a love for outdoor things. I think that, boating and hiking and activities, those are going to be huge. I think summer camps are going to be at record numbers.
What do you think about vaccine passports and the idea is, major stadiums like Madison Square Garden, for example, that's saying, hey, if you can prove that you're COVID negative or you've been vaccinated, then here's the app and you can kind of get entrance into the stadium for the event.
I think ultimately it still comes down to trust and who's comfortable. Obviously, with the CDC saying that vaccinated people can now not wear masks indoors, I think that changes. But, we'll have to see. I think that there's always going to be people who are uncomfortable with whatever policies. And the thing that we've learned that this is not the United States of America. It's a whole bunch of states making different decisions.
Talk about the online betting world. It sounds like that has just really exploded. And then also crypto horse racing. What's that all about?
Okay, so clearly without interpersonal communication, we have gone nuts as human beings, Lindsay. You buy a digital horse for real money. You win a race, you get real money. You breed with other digital horses, you get real money, and you can sell them for real money. At one point, I had 13 digital horses, and it sounded like, frankly, that I was on drugs when I was talking to people, because it's just so fantastical and so weird. But we almost needed this type of stuff because we don't have our normal natural interactions.
And you're obviously on the cutting edge of all of this. What's on the horizon that we don't really know about yet?
Just watching my kids play Roblox, which is a multi-billion-dollar company, and seeing that's the generation and how comfortable they are with things that they don't actually feel or touch. I think all of us who are maybe older than 30 have to get used to, owning digital things, and I can only see that on the rise in the future.
Let's just do a lightning round of things that you think are going to be beyond the next year, or if they're just a bust this year. So let's start with vaccine passports.
Yeah, no, I think that's this year. Yeah. Unless we have another COVID, but I think 2021, and then you can put the thing away.
Movies that go directly to streaming.
I think it's been very clear that it is not as profitable, and they are incentivized to not do that. So I think that goes back.
Sports bubbles.
I think they're going to get rid of that as soon as possible. I think we've probably seen the last of that. The good thing is, I feel like if this does happen again sometime in the near future, I think we know how to do this. And I don't think having no sports at all is going to happen again.
What's the future for D-Nice and dance parties and virtual concerts?
I think we're going to get back to the real thing pretty soon. I think people want the real thing.
Lastly, socially distanced chairs or seating arrangements.
That's gone. I think people are sick of 6 feet. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to hear 6 feet ever again.
All right, our thanks to Lindsay Davis for that report. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. Eastern with Terry Moran for The Breakdown. Have a great day.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.